Welcome back to Spilling the Tea SA. I'm your host, Bianca, and today we are exposing exactly how South African social media is being manipulated by people who know precisely what racial nerves to hit for maximum outrage. We're going to unpack how dog whistle language works, how race baiters deliberately stir up hatred in this country, and why South Africans leap to racial narratives long before facts are available. And then we'll break down the actual truth about the chubby chick shooting that took place in Potchefstroom, South Africa on the 10th of November 2025. So grab your tea and let's dive in. So let's start with the dog whistle dictionary. Now, in South Africa, we know that a word like farmer and worker should be neutral, okay? Because you get farmers of all races. Maybe Donald Trump should actually be informed of that fact.
In our country, people who do get killed, unfortunately through criminal activity, are not only white people. Majority of them are black people. And we have now been utilized.
The farmers are not black.
I
don't say that's good or bad, but the farmers are not black.
But because of decades of racialized narratives, they've become code words. And farmer is almost always assumed to mean white, and worker is almost always assumed to mean black. So when a post says farmer shot by worker or workers kills farmer, people don't wait for details. They instantly fill in the racial gaps, and then they act instinctively and emotionally and with great confidence, despite them not having the facts on hand. And this is why these terms are so effective as dog whistles. They say nothing directly, but they imply everything. And this is exactly what race baiters in South Africa and outside South Africa, yes, Alice van Lochenberg, we're talking about you, rely on. They drop in the right coded word, farmer and worker, and then they walk away. They know what their audience will do. They know the outrage these words will unleash. And they also hide behind the fact that I wasn't racist. I mean, just look at my post. I just said a farmer was shot by a worker. I didn't say a white man was shot by a black man. I can't control my comment section. No, you can't control your comment section, but you know that it is deliberate manipulation. It's outrage farming. And this is exploiting South Africa's racial trauma for clicks, reach, and influence. It's dishonest, it's irresponsible, and it's dangerous. To understand exactly how predictable this behavior is, let's look at the misleading post from Super Rugby that triggered a storm of racist comments after the chubby chick shooting. Here is the original Super Rugby post. And you'll notice the combination of farmer and worker. Now, these two words alone were enough to ignite a racial frenzy, even though the information was completely false. I would like to highlight that the following examples that I'm going to provide of the comments contain extreme racism and degrading language. So from the first minutes, people jumped straight to racial assumptions, and they stated it as fact. The tone escalated rapidly, and this wasn't a fringe minority. It was the overwhelming tone in that comment section. And this is what happens when race baiters use coded language. People feel entitled to say the most vile things, things that they would never say in person or have the courage to say to someone's face, and they hide behind the excuse that they were feeling emotional at the time. Feeling emotional or feeling upset or feeling afraid is not an excuse for blatant vile racism. I should also mention there were several users in that thread that actually indicated that this is not the correct information, it's misinformation, but they were either ignored or they were drowned out by outrage, or they were also personally attacked, saying, oh, what if it was you? And of course, the president is responsible because white people are being killed. Every single assumption was false. Not one racist comment matched the actual facts. So let's be absolutely clear here. When you deliberately post words that you know are going to trigger people and it's going to feed into their worst racism, they're going to lean into their hate immediately. And you know the racial chaos that you are going to unleash, when your post causes hundreds of racist comments, when the victim's family, who are currently experiencing trauma, have to actually issue a statement to correct the disinformation you have circulated, and your only response is to quietly edit it in the background without apologizing, without correcting, without taking responsibility, and also without actually addressing the racism within your comment section, that's not neutrality. That's not an accident. That is deliberate race baiting. And it's reckless, it's harmful, and morally bankrupt. If you ignite racial hatred for clicks, you can't just pretend you're innocent then. You knew exactly what you were doing because you know your audience. And here's something that I need to highlight. I want to talk about the tone shift, okay? The moment it was confirmed that the alleged perpetrator wasn't exactly who they thought it was, so in other words, it wasn't a black savage, barbarians, it wasn't a worker, okay? The entire tone of that conversation changed overnight. The outrage evaporated, the racist comments stopped, and then there were sudden questions. Why this happened? What could have upset him like this? What is the backstory? So immediately people were then rushing to excuse it. And the racism died down immediately. And the same people who were screaming with certainty suddenly had nothing to say. They were gone. They weren't in that comment section because now it wasn't exciting. And that's why I say a lot of these racists don't care about victims. The race baiters and outrage farmers don't care about victims either. I'm going to show you the two posts. So this is the original race baiting post. And this is the updated post after the family came out and said, please, this was not a racial issue. And you can see the transformation between the two. It's actually staggering. Even the words changed. For instance, in Afrikaans, afgemaai, cut down. So worker cut these two farmers down. Whereas in the next post, the two brothers were shot. And what I wanted to say is no apology that the information was incorrect. Nothing. Just edited in the background. No mention of the correction, no accountability. And by the time the truth came out, it was too late. The dog whistle had already worked. The racism had already been unleashed. And yes, you can correct a fact, but you cannot unring the bell of vile racial outrage. Now, we also need to address an uncomfortable truth, and we have to do this honestly, because we have to be authentic here. Most of the racist comments in that thread were written in Afrikaans. As you can see, I actually translated, and I have 10 pages of racist comments, and I can tell you the majority of them, except for ones calling out for Trump to actually come and help with the situation, the majority of them were in Afrikaans. But I want to say this, many Afrikaans South Africans are not like that. They are decent, rational people who don't spew hatred on the internet all day. Many are embarrassed. They are genuinely ashamed that a loud, toxic minority makes the entire community look bigoted and like vile racists. This isn't Afrikaners are racist, okay? This is a group weaponizing social media, harming fellow South Africans with that vile racism. And then you've got your race baiters who know exactly how to trigger them. We must stop giving these people excuses. This is not about people being sensitive, or this is not about misunderstanding. This is racism. It's chosen and it's intentional, and it needs to get to a stage where it's confronted and there's actually consequences for this kind of behavior. But I wouldn't even just stop at consequences for the people making the racist comments. I would actually say is we need to look at a way of dealing with these race baiters and outrage farmers online, because they drop a little spark and then they watch it burn. And for me, the silence from them not to correct people, the silence from them not to take on the racists in their comment section tells you exactly that they knew what they are doing. So let's get to the real story of the Chubby Chick shooting. Here is the verified truth. First of all, the alleged shooter was not a worker. He was not a black man. It had nothing to do with race. The shooter was Robert Hubert, a 73-year-old white Afrikaans man. He allegedly shot Dion Fourie, 55, and killed his brother, Jonathan Fourie, 52, and they were both directors of Chubby Chick. Now, the Fourie family publicly confirmed it was not race-related. The perpetrator was not a worker or contractor. The social media narrative was completely false. They had to put out that statement amidst the trauma they were going through. And every racist assumption was wrong. And there is a cost for outrage farming. People will say, but what is the harm? Okay, so we can ignore the pain, the humiliation, the degradation of fellow South Africans if you feel that way. But the one thing that we need to keep in mind is that it inflames racial tension. It traumatizes innocent families of victims. It spreads lies faster than truth can catch up. It normalizes hatred amongst a certain group, and it smears entire communities because of the loudest bigots amongst them. South Africans deserve better than being manipulated for clicks and engagement on your Facebook page or your X page. I want to thank you for watching Spilling the Tea SA, and if you're tired of seeing South Africans being manipulated for outrage, please like, share, subscribe, and tap the notification bell. In my next video, I will be speaking to another original signatory of the Not in Our Name, Nie in Ons Naam letter, a collective of Afrikaans South Africans rejecting racial generalizations and political manipulation. You don't want to miss it. Thanks for watching, and keep questioning the narratives people want you to swallow.